Maryland basketball gets a huge road win against Michigan.
You are Locked On Terps, your daily podcast on the Maryland Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everyone? I'm Trey Moore, host of Locked On Terps for the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So thank you guys for making us part of your day. And I'm also doing work at InsideBlackandGold.net. So make sure you guys head over to InsideBlackandGold.net for all your latest Terps news. And today's episode is brought to you by the all-new 2025 Nissan. Stay with us for the Nissan Team of the Week later in the episode. Maryland basketball gets another huge road win against the Michigan Wolverines. What a game for the Terps on the road. The Terps really impressed me last night against the Michigan Wolverines in a really great game, I thought, for Maryland. A game that I thought we didn't need to have. I can't say we needed to have this game. We're at the point in the season where you don't really have to win anymore. Like even our Saturday game against Northwestern, it's not like if we don't win, it's not like all of a sudden we're not going to be a March team. But we're at the part of the season where you obviously want to win games, but it's not like you have to win. Like last year, remember, there was wins like we had to have. This Michigan game, we've built up a good enough resume where if we had lost this game, we would still be fine. We'd still be in the tournament. We would still be in a good spot. But Maryland really showed that they can win on the road, which I think might have been the biggest storyline of this game. We know the struggles Maryland basketball has had on the road in the past. And this year, it started off really tough on the road. I think people forget. We started off really poorly on the road in Big Ten play. You guys remember that West Coast road trip that we had? And, those aren't easy to do, but remember when we had played Washington, and that was a game that I was like, okay, this is the team we should absolutely beat. I was like, this game probably won't be close against the Washington Huskies. We're better than them. We're our program's in a better spot than them. We have a lot more talent than them, but we ended up losing the game, and we ended up losing a game we shouldn't have lost on the road. And then we had Oregon on the ropes, and this is the time when Oregon was pretty highly ranked. They were definitely a really good team at the time. They were definitely in a good spot as a program, and we had the Oregon team in a good spot, a spot where I thought we were going to be able to win the game, and we just couldn't get it done against Oregon on the road. And we struggled early on, Maryland basketball did on the road, even earlier on in the season. I remember when we got Purdue early in Big Ten play, I thought Maryland didn't have a bad game, but we didn't end up winning that game. So I think this win against Michigan, the 71-65 win against Michigan, is really big for Maryland to show that we've flipped a switch now on the road. It wasn't like a couple game fluke. It wasn't something that's like, oh, Maryland's won one game on the road. No, Maryland's been consistently been able to win this year on the road. And credit to Kevin Willard and credit to the players for being able to put that together, because last year that wasn't much of a thing. Look at it. We just beat Michigan by 6 on the road. That's huge. We just beat Penn State in a battle by 4 on the road. What other road wins did we get? We beat Nebraska on the road, which I thought was a big win for the Terps. We figured out a way to beat Indiana on the road. We crushed Illinois on the road. Like Maryland has some really good wins on the road. And we're really starting to put it together. And I talk about it in March. It's so important to be able to win on the road later on in the season, because when you get to the tournament, all your games are not technically on the road, but they're in a neutral site game. So they're definitely not quite home games. And so it's important that Maryland showed against Michigan, being able to win on the road 71-65. And that's another top 25 win for the Terps, which I think is huge. We're starting to really put together a really good resume for March Madness and put ourselves in a really good spot. And this game against Michigan really puts us at a really good spot. And Michigan was good. They're really good team this year. 22-8 now after the loss to Maryland. But there's a 17th ranked team in the country. They have some big wins. They've done some big things. And I thought Maryland showed that Maryland's here to stay. Maryland's in a really good spot as a program, and we've done some really good things. I thought this game was also important because I think we showed how to win a game in different ways so far this year, which you have to do in college basketball. You don't win one way. There's multiple ways to win in college basketball, and if you only have one way to win, you're not going to win later on in March. That's just like what it is for the Terps. But I think Maryland has shown this year the ability to win games offensively, putting up 101 against Iowa, 88 against USC, 83 against Nebraska, 90 against Rutgers. But I think the Terps proved this game that they were going to win this game more on the defensive side of things. The first half, the score was 33 to 22. So Maryland obviously had a big lead in the first half, but Maryland showed themselves to be really solid defensively in this game on the road. And I always say defense travels, so you're able to win games on the road if you have good defense. Offense doesn't always travel, and that's just the way it is. But I think the Terps proved to themselves that the way they played defensively in the first half allowed them to be able to win this game. And I really believe that. And I think if they didn't play the same level defensively in this game in the first half, I don't know if Maryland wins the game, because obviously Maryland scored 71, which is definitely not bad against a Michigan team that I think is definitely pretty solid. But it's definitely tough to win the game when you get outscored by 5 in the second half, which Maryland had. But since they played so solidly defensively in the first half, the Terps put themselves in good position to be able to win this game. And then we also saw Maryland. I honestly thought Maryland got a little bit lucky this game with how poorly Michigan shot from the free throw line. They only shot 57% from the free throw line, and I think that's one spot where Maryland shot 73%. So Maryland showed the ability to shoot free throws better, as well as the three-point arc. Our starters shot 36%, which I thought was really solid. And Jordan Geronimo had the only attempted three off the bench for the Terps. And so I did think that Maryland shot the ball really well in this game at 36% from the three-point arc. That's definitely solid after the Michigan State game where we were at like 20%. So the Terps have definitely put themselves in a pretty good spot, I thought, overall in terms of this game. Then I liked how we hit the offensive boards. 11 offensive board for the Terps is definitely good for this Maryland team. And now let's check out the Big Ten standings. So we talked about the importance of winning down the stretch. We talked about how important it was because you want to be a top 4 seed in the Big Ten tournament because you want to get that double bye. And right now, Purdue, Maryland, and Wisconsin are all sitting at 13-6. So beating this Michigan team was absolutely huge and mattered a ton. But if you look at it, Maryland absolutely still has the ability to finish as the second team in the conference. It looks more and more like Michigan State is going to wrap up the Big Ten. It looks like they're going to be able to do that. But Maryland looks like they have a really good shot at finishing second in the conference if they beat Northwestern on a Saturday, as well as if Michigan loses to Michigan State in the last game of the year. Maryland will move up to the second seed, and I think I think we'll stay in the top 4. Obviously, I don't know exactly what's going to happen with Wisconsin and Purdue, but I think Maryland has a really good chance of staying in the top 4. You want that double bye, and if you drop that one to Michigan, you could have dropped in the conference ratings, and it's definitely competitive and close at the top for the Terps. They're definitely doing a lot of teams are definitely doing some good things. Like even UCLA is right there with the 12-7 record. Like they're only one game behind us. So it's definitely competitive. So I think beating that Michigan team was huge for that part of that, the double bye. I say anything can happen in March, so it's extremely important. And then I also think this is going to improve our ranking at the end of the week. I guess you're going to have brackets coming up in bracketology, and I have an episode coming out tomorrow that I'm really excited about, where I have a couple of guests on that we're going to talk some Maryland bracketology, where the Terps stand at, kind of what's the deal with that. And I think this win is absolutely huge for that. You get another big quad one win, which the Terps are starting to rack up. And so I think that was huge. And that was the last road game of the year. And I think we did a really solid job being a lot better this year on the road. And it is a little bit disappointing because I thought Maryland had every opportunity this year to win the Big Ten. Like, we absolutely could have won the Big Ten. We got unlucky with 3 buzzer beaters hit on us. And it was also cool to see we still play Northwestern on Saturday, and I'll give my end of the season thoughts after that more. But it was also cool to see the Terps not get blown out in any game. There wasn't a game this year where we weren't in. We were in every single game, which makes me feel good going into the dance and into the tournament. But Maryland absolutely could have won the Big Ten this year. There was a lot of losses that really could have went our way, that should have probably went our way. But you can't argue with being a top 4 team in the Big Ten right now, and one of the better teams in the conference, and the 13th ranked team in the country, which if you beat Northwestern on Saturday, you might get up to 12, 11, maybe 10, and it's exciting times for Maryland basketball, and we got the best part still ahead, the Big Ten tournament and the dance. So let's dive more into this game against Michigan, who I thought played well. What does this mean going forward? We'll talk about that next. The Armada Team of the Week is brought to you by our friends at Nissan in the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Each week, our Locked On College basketball experts are picking one team that stands apart, from top-seeded stars to the unexpected upset, and these guys showcase the strength and sheer power needed to push their team forward. This week's Armada and clear-cut Team of the Weeks are the Houston Cougars. Since joining the Big 12 last season, the Cougars have gone a combined 33-4 in conference games, winning the regular season title by multiple games both year. There's no team in college basketball that is more embodies the rugged Armada than Kelvin Sampson's squad. Houston's tenacious defense leads the nation in fewest points allowed per game for the second straight season. And when it comes to Nissan Armada, they say go forth and conquer, and that's exactly what the Houston Cougars have done here. It's clear that our Team of the Week is out here ready to conquer the road ahead with confidence, just like you can call in the all-new Nissan Armada or any Nissan's outstanding vehicles. Take the Nissan Armada Rogue or Pathfinder and go find your next big adventure. Shop at nissanusa.com. All right, let's get into the individual performances, who I thought played well. Let's get into some of those things, because I thought a lot of Maryland players played well. Obviously, our Crab 5 had another really awesome game, specifically 3 of them. I thought Rodney Rice played a heck of a game, and he's been solid all year for us. Bringing in Rodney Rice has been huge this year. I can't speak to how big that's been. I think right now, if you took the stats from our last 7, 8 games, 9, 10 games, he'd probably be our leading scorer so far this year. I think he's our best pure scorer out of the guard spot. He's a really nice stroke. You can shoot the ball, and he did that against Michigan, playing 38 minutes. Shot 4 of 9 from the three-point arc, which I thought was huge. 19 points for Rodney Rice, and he continues to be really impressive and continues to just play solid ball. Doesn't do anything too crazy, doesn't try to make hero plays, but makes shots down the stretch. And I think he's been having a really good season. And he's a big part of the reason why I think we're a really good team this year. It's because he consistently shooting the ball well. He's consistently scoring the ball well. I don't know how Virginia Tech let this kid slip away, but we'll take it. He's a really special player that I think can be a really good Maryland guy for the next couple of years. And then I thought Derek Queen had a Derek Queen type of day, 17 points, 12 rebounds, 7-11 from the free throw line. I thought was big, attempted a lot of free throws, got to the line, which I think is going to be important when we get into March. I think we want Derek Queen getting to the line. We want him getting downhill. We want him doing those different things. So I do think that's important for Queen as seeing what he's able to do in terms of getting to the line. I think that's going to be important in March. And obviously, we need him playing at his best level for the Terps to be able to win games. But 5 to 13 from the field, 12 rebounds and assists, 2 steals, a block. What Derek Queen did is definitely really solid. And he might wrap up the Big Ten Freshman of the Year. I still don't know exactly what's going to happen. I want to feel like Queen's going to win it. I also just am not 100% sure. I think Maryland fans will definitely be disappointed if he doesn't. But in this year, if you win Big Ten Freshman of the Year, you did something right because there's some potential NBA All-Stars in this year's freshman class, not only in the Big Ten, but in the entire country. But obviously, we're focusing on the Big Ten. And then I also thought Shelton Miguel played really well, 17 points. I saw something on Twitter that says Shelton Miguel always seems to drop 17. And I was looking through his stats, and it's kind of true. When he has a big game, it's usually 17 points. And he's peaking at the right time, I'll tell you. You talk about peaking during March and guys playing well during the tournament. I think Shelton Miguel is a guy that is clearly peaking at the right time and playing at a really high level at the right time, which we absolutely need if we want to make a run in the tournament. I always say it. The team is good when Shelton Miguel is playing decent basketball, but the team takes on another level when he starts playing really well. We're really tough to beat. In games where he plays well, we're usually going to win. I really think he's a huge sway for us because I thought there was times this season where we weren't really sure. Things weren't looking awesome. He wasn't doing everything I think Kevin Willard wanted him to do. And then there was other times this season where, especially recently, where he's been playing really well. He's been doing a lot of really good things. And I think we're seeing Shelton Miguel put together some really solid performances, but 3 of 7 from the 3-point line, 7 to 13 from the field, 17 points. We saw what happened when he missed some of the game because of foul trouble against Michigan State. We really missed him offensively. He also had 4 steals, so he was definitely really good on the defensive side of the ball. And then I want to point out something big before I keep talking. I thought the turnovers were really solid. Maryland only had 8 turnovers. Julian Reese had 3 of those, but I thought Maryland played a really good job in terms of turning over the ball compared to forcing Michigan into 16 turnovers. Julian Reese, I thought, didn't have his best game offensively, and he's kind of hit a cold spot, I feel like, offensively, but we know later on he's going to be huge. But he has a huge game on Saturday. It's senior day, and I think this day is going to be huge for Julian Reese. And Kevin Willard talked about it. It's really about him. Him being a 4-year Maryland guy is honestly really special. Like that just doesn't happen that much in today's college of basketball. You don't usually have a guy with the talent of Julian Reese where the program goes through ups and downs, and a guy like Julian Reese ends up staying all 4 years. It's just not something that happens. And obviously he went through a coaching change. He went through a really bad year for Maryland basketball where I thought he was going to leave, and I thought it made sense for him to leave, and I wasn't going to blame him if he was going to leave last year, but he stuck with it, stuck through it, and I think what he's done his Maryland career is honestly really awesome. Didn't do anything special on Saturday against Michigan, but we obviously need him through this season, and I thought he had a really good defensive game. I'll say that. 3 steals, 2 blocks. He's been playing really high level defensively. His offense is just a bonus, and that's what's good about this team. We don't need Reese to be a 20-point per game type of guy. We just need him to be able to score the ball solidly, which I thought is special for the Terps. And we need him to be good defensively. And then I thought off the bench, I thought Geronimo has definitely been playing well. Gapari's minutes have kind of gone down. And Geronimo has been the guy off the bench making an impact. Oh, excuse me. Dang, my bad. Tired these days. You don't never get as much sleep as you want to get. But Geronimo had a really solid game. I thought 2 for 3 from the field, 4 points, 16 minutes. Played a lot of minutes where Julian Reese wasn't playing his best ball. And I thought he did some good things. A block as well. Efficient. I thought he gave us good minutes, and that's what we need off the bench. And that broke like a couple game streak where Maryland bench hadn't scored. I thought those were really the guys that I thought played well. I thought Gillespie played well in terms of assisting the ball and rebounding the ball. 7 rebounds for Gillespie, 5 assists. He had 8 points. He didn't make 2 big threes, but didn't have his best game overall shooting the ball. So we definitely want to see Gillespie get going a little bit. But overall, I thought Terps played really well. So I'm definitely happy with that. And what's next for Maryland basketball? We'll talk about that next in the huge game against Northwestern. We'll talk about that next. So Maryland has a huge game against Northwestern on Saturday, senior day, and that's a huge reason this one's huge. A lot of other games are huge because the Michigan game was obviously big because of the ranking, the quad one, like all those different things. But this game against Northwestern is big because it's senior day. And I just talked about it. Julian Reese deserves all the flowers and everything he should get on senior day, and I hope he gets celebrated the right way, and I think he will. But the Terps have an interesting Northwestern team coming up, a team that's honestly played pretty solidly in their last couple of games. They lost last game to UCLA by 4, but played really well against Iowa on Friday, February 28th, and then on Minnesota, they beat them, and then they also crushed Ohio State. And so this Northwestern team has definitely been playing solidly. But here's the thing, Maryland's better than this team. And I don't think that's an argument. I think Northwestern fans would tell you Maryland's the better team. But if you guys remember back in the season, Maryland versus Northwestern, that shot Northwestern hit against Maryland on the buzzer beater to beat Maryland was definitely huge. That was a game Maryland should have won. Maryland was up late in that game, and they just couldn't get it done. And that's what we've seen sometimes from the Terps. But that was specifically a one where it's like Maryland's the better team than Northwestern. Show that, prove that you're the better team. Don't overcomplicate this. Beat Northwestern it was a road game. And that's when a lot of the road struggles were. And I was like, I don't know if that was a big time where I was like, Maryland hasn't shown the ability to finish games late. And that was one of those types of games. But we're looking at this game against Northwestern in a rematch game on Saturday at 3 p.m. Maryland, you're going to have a chance to get a rematch against a team that really made a highlight out of you, kind of made you look bad. Obviously, we weren't in a bad spot. We won a couple games before that. But still, this is a team that you want to beat. If you get a second crack at a team that beat you, you got to take advantage of that. You got to go ahead and win that type of game. And the Terps have a second crack at Northwestern, and I think you got to be able to win a game like that. They're a decent team with decent players, but they're nothing special. And I definitely think that's a game Maryland should be able to win. That's a game Maryland should be able to walk out and be able to win. But I think I do want to really – the bigger message of this game is senior day. Make sure if you can go the game, go, because Julian Reese deserves to be celebrated like a king after staying through for Maryland and all these different things. And it probably might be our last home regular season game for Derek Queen as well. But I really think Julian Reese deserves to be celebrated and everything. I think that's an important part of this. Obviously, there's a couple other older guys on the team as well. But definitely, I definitely say Julian Reese, deserves all the recognition he's going to get. Like Kevin Willard said, it's really about him and him being a 4-year Maryland player, him truly being a Maryland kid from Baltimore. Like, that's probably all he wanted to do growing up. And so I think he definitely deserves a lot. Maybe his sister, Angel Reese, will be there possibly for that. Maybe not, but we'll see. But that's all we have for today. Thank you guys for listening to Locked on Terps. Make sure you like and subscribe. We're here every day talking Maryland football and basketball. So thank you guys for listening to Locked on Terps.